Hello, my name is Dr. Megan Marks. I am the Assistant Director for Outreach at the UK Counseling Center, and I am also a licensed psychologist. I'm very excited to talk to you about services that the Counseling Center has to offer you and your students in their transition to UK. And I'm also going to talk about some other resources that are available. Okay. Let's get started. So this first slide, we are just really focusing on some of the typical college transition stressors. It just feels important to name those and so that you all know what to expect, what you might see in your students, and to kind of normalize some of the things that your students will go through. So we've got a bunch of Bitmojis here to represent all those different stressors. And your student might experience these in the first few weeks, the first semester, the first year, and there's other parts of this that they might experience throughout their time in college. So we can see starting up at the top here, the I'm sick. This is the first time that your student might be in charge of their own health, making doctor's appointments, and what does it mean when I'm sick? So, and that's certainly complicated right now in times of COVID-19. And so how to recognize signs that they aren't themselves and or signs of COVID-19. And so we encourage students to be paying attention to their temperature, whether or not they have a cough, their energy levels, and also what to do when their temperature or something just doesn't seem typical with their health. And thankfully, we've got a wonderful University Health Services on campus that can help your students. And so there are, same-day appointments available. But we also encourage our students to have some items to help them manage just kind of typical illnesses like cold and flu. And so having things like, Advil, Tylenol, cough drops, vitamins, and things like cold and flu medicines can be helpful. We also know that our students often feel really busy, even if they were really engaged in high school and took, a lot of classes and were engaged in extracurricular activities and sports. College is even busier. Students often, will take, more classes, and that requires a lot more independent work. And then extracurriculars, can sometimes happen in the evenings or on the weekends, and then sports certainly take up a lot of time. And so in high school, if a student was typically used to a schedule of 7 to 3 or 8 to 5, often the college schedule can be a lot busier. Classes can happen in the morning and the afternoon and evenings. Student organization meetings can happen late evenings, sometimes on weekends. So their schedules can be a lot more spread out. We also know a lot of our students often worry about missing out on fun times with their friends, just missing out on experiences. So you might often hear your student feeling like they're missing out, especially if they have to work. They often feel like, oh, I'm missing out on all these times to spend with my friends. And so that can be a common stressor. We also see a lot of students struggling with their sleep, whether it's, there's new noises, a new bed, new sleep schedule. There's a lot of reasons that their sleep could be disrupted, studying on their computers and then going to bed right after that can be sleep disruptive. And so we often see a lot of students who have some difficulty sleeping. Also, if they're feeling anxious and worried, that can also sometimes keep them up at night. We find sometimes students can get lost on campus. This is a large campus, navigating, just the large campus, navigating the UK system. But also there's kind of that emotional loss. They had a certain identity in high school or maybe in your family, and now they're trying to figure out, is that the identity that I'm bringing here to UK? Am I creating a new identity? Maybe they thought they were going to major in one academic area, and maybe that doesn't feel like a fit. So there can be that physical lost feeling, but also that emotional lost feeling. Where do I fit in this large community, right? We also often hear students feeling tired from a variety of reasons, and also sometimes feeling overwhelmed by all the work that they're balancing. And so sometimes it might feel hard for them to manage their emotions. Our students often are going through some first romantic breakups, whether it's a relationship from high school or having a long distance relationship from high school into college, or dating for the first time in college and going through their first breakup. So that can certainly be a stressor. We know that finances are often a stress for students, and so it's about maybe learning how to budget for the first time, having to pay for things for the first time, maybe having to balance having a job in college, or job and academics for the first time. So there can be a lot of financial stressors for our students. Students can often, again, just feel overwhelmed by the amount of schoolwork in college. In high school, there may have been a lot, but there was a lot more structure to the work in high school. And now in college, there's a lot more independence. And so a lot of students have to learn how to become independent, which means, that when they get assignments, it's up to them to create their schedule of how they're going to complete it. There's often a lot more reading. And we usually say for every 1 credit hour, it's 2 to 3 hours per week of studying and reading. So 1 3-credit class could be anywhere from 6 to 9 extra hours on top of that class for studying and reading. And that's often not something that a lot of our first-year students are used to. Also, students can often feel homesick, even if they were excited to leave home. They wonder, do you miss me? Do my friends miss me? There can be just the comforts of home, home cooking potentially, just having people who know them, people who've known them for a long time. And so we often see some students feeling homesick, and then also just wondering if people miss them. So those are some of our typical college transition stressors. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about some stressors that are specific to first generation students. So certainly everybody in 2020 right now, we're all concerned about COVID-19. And so, certainly that would go for all of our incoming students, worrying about the impact on their health, on their family's health. Some of our students have already lost family members or friends. And so certainly COVID-19 can bring on a lot of challenges. Also, there's some anxiety about, there's a lot of unknowns. All of these students have had their semesters disrupted in their senior year, and, worrying and wondering, will that happen to them again? And so certainly we see that as a major stressor for students this year in 2020. What we also know is that a lot of our first year students can also have the feeling of being an imposter. And so really that means feeling like they might not belong, whether it's they don't belong here socially, whether or not they don't belong here financially, whether or not they don't belong here academically. There's often this sense that, if someone really found out who I am, maybe they would ask me to leave. And so you might hear your student just feeling like they're not sure they belong for a variety of reasons, or they're just not sure if they have what it takes to be a college student. And so that imposter syndrome can be very real and can really impact how your student sees themselves. And what you should know is absolutely your student belongs with us at UK. We want them at UK, and we want to support them in their journey here at UK. Also, some of our students might feel some isolation. So again, students, all students are looking to create their support system at the University of Kentucky, but also our first generation students sometimes can feel kind of caught between worlds, right? So, if they're the first in the family to go to college, there's just so many unknowns. And so they might feel a little bit separate from family. And then if they have peers at UK who are not first generation students, then they may feel like they don't fully fit in there. So sometimes it can feel pretty isolating. Isolation can also happen if a student has to return home often. Maybe it's to help out family at home, in tasks and responsibilities. Sometimes it's helping out at home in work ways. Also, sometimes there may be work having an extra job on campus or off campus. And so sometimes not being able to spend time with their peers on campus can leave students feeling isolated. Also, I think a big transition for our first generation students is just not being as familiar with what resources might be available to them in college, and who can they turn to, who is trustworthy. That can often be a question. Certainly we've got a lot of faculty and staff at the University of Kentucky that want to support your students, but it can feel overwhelming, and they can feel like I'm not sure who I can turn to and who I can trust. And then, of course, balancing expectations. So your student is going to come to college with their own expectations about how they will perform in their classes. You also may have your own expectations for how they'll perform, or how they will choose a major, or what career path they may engage in. And so sometimes there may be a disconnect between those expectations, or there may be a disconnect between how a student and you have expectations for how they'll perform and how they do perform in the university. It's not uncommon for our students their first semester to not perform at their best. They are still learning how to be a college student. And it often takes a year, sometimes even 2 years, for them to really understand how they learn best independently. And so just wanted to offer that for a moment. So while we've got all these amazing resources here at the University of Kentucky, I just also wanted to let you all know about this resource that was created by the JED Foundation, which is very focused on college student mental health. The website is called Set2Go, and it's specifically focused on first-generation students and also that transition to college. So I've got here an image of this website, but now I'm also going to show you a little bit about that website. Let's see here. All right, so I'm on the website here. So you can see at the top that it shows that there's a tab for students. There's also a tab for families. So we can see, if we scroll down here, there's a lot of information for families, kind of putting college in perspective. Some of these boxes are about, preparing for your students to apply for college. But as we scroll down, what basic life skills do we want students to be thinking about having before coming to college? So there's some financial management, some basic life skills, resources, things like that. There's social and emotional skills. Let's see, we've got the mental health and substance abuse literacy. So talking about different mental health professionals, like, for instance, I'm a psychologist versus what a licensed clinical social worker is, or a counselor, things like that. Talking about the transition, one of the things that I really like on here is talking about your communication contract. So how often will you and your student be communicating? Is it daily? Is it once a week? Is it a couple times a week? Really kind of talking about that before they come to college. Also talking about college and stress, some of the things that I've been talking about today. Adjusting to life as a college freshman, what, you all should expect during their first few weeks of college. We've also got things here, let's see here, the stress check, signs of problems, things like that. And then if we click up here for students, this is really great for students also to explore so that they can also be prepared. So let's click on the transition to college here for a minute. Talk some about the transition. It's certainly exciting, but there's also some stressors related, and we want them to be prepared. Talking about their changing relationships with you as family members, but also their friends back at home. How to build those new circles of friendship, taking care of their health, how to stay active. For many students, this is the first time that they're thinking about their own nutrition, and thinking about, how do I have healthy nutrition if I'm not cooking for myself, if I don't have a family member cooking for myself, things like that. Getting involved on campus, if they feel lonely, getting help, things like that. So academic performance and pressure. So there's a lot of good information here, talking about different strategies to kind of manage their pressure, dealing with competition. Many of our students have been high performers in their classes in small high schools, and then they come to college and they're surrounded by lots of high performers, and that can feel overwhelming. Talks about finding your academic path, working with other college students. We know that there's a lot of group group work in classes and things like that. So this is a great website. So I hope that you'll check it out. A lot of effort has been put into it. And I think that even though it's not a UK specific website, it can be really helpful to our students. All right, so let me see if I can find my PowerPoint again. Okay, here we go. So now I want to talk a little bit about, mental well-being during uncertainty. And so that uncertainty can be right now as we talk about COVID-19, but also with your student as they're transitioning into college. There is a lot of uncertainty. They don't know how this next semester is going to go. And so we want to remind you and your students to really focus on these things. So focusing on what you can control. There's a lot out of our control right now, right? Whether it's related to COVID or, transitioning to the universities, there's just some things that are out of our control and out of your students' control. Maybe it's, how a professor is. Maybe it's where students are, how they're being asked to socially distance. And so we really want students to focus on what's in their control. So they can control, their sleep schedule. They can control how much time and effort they put into their academics. They can control, what they're eating and drinking. They can control how they respond to situations. And so really looking at what is in their control. And this is certainly something that we can help out with at the Counseling Center. Also, during these stressful times, we've got a lot of news right now about COVID-19 and cases on the rise. We've also got news about protests. We've got news about Black individuals being murdered. So there's just a lot in the news that can be heavy and painful. And so it can be really helpful to reduce exposure to that news, whether that's actually watching the news or reading articles, but also social media. Social media can bring up anger, frustration, disappointment, fear, lots of different emotional reactions. So just really kind of limiting how much we're taking in. That can go for you as well as your students. And sometimes we also find our students, when they're transitioning to college, sometimes they might think, all my friends are fitting in at their colleges better, or all my friends are doing better than I am, or all my friends are living the best college life and I'm not. And that can sometimes come from social media. And so I often encourage my clients to try to limit who they're following, how much they're looking at their social media, and that can really greatly impact their mood. We, as I mentioned before, really want our students to be mindful of what they're putting into their body, making sure they're staying hydrated. Certainly we need to enjoy foods that we're eating and have some fun foods like ice cream and chocolate, French fries, things like that. But it's also about finding that balance and making sure that we're nourishing ourselves in ways that are going to allow us to engage in our academics and our other commitments, in helpful ways. And so making sure we're also having protein and vegetables that are going to sustain our energy, right? And also thinking about what we're putting into our bodies, the impact of alcohol or other substances and what the impact is on our academics and on our mood. This is a time that many students experiment with alcohol and substances. And so really knowing what the impact can be when we're feeling anxious and uncertain. Some substances and sometimes alcohol can cause us to be more depressed or more anxious. And so really being mindful of that. We also encourage our students to connect with those that are supportive. So that might be connecting with you as family members or friends from back at home, trying to get connected with faculty and staff on campus as well as their peers. When we're feeling scared and uncertain, it can be really important to be connecting with those that we feel safe around and grounded with. And then, of course, we want our students to be focusing on purpose and meaning. So whether that's focusing on their major and their career path, or it's extracurriculars that feel meaningful to them. It might be, remaining connected with church from home, watching virtually. That might be meaningful and feel like purpose. It might be volunteering, whether it's in Lexington or volunteering kind of virtually in different ways. And so what are the ways that your students find meaning and purpose? And that can help us feel more grounded and centered during times of uncertainty. And this goes for times of COVID, but also during major transitions. So I'm going to talk a little bit more now about the Counseling Center and our services that we have and how we can support you and your students. This is our Counseling Center staff. These are on the steps of Frazee Hall, where our Counseling Center is located. Frazee Hall is located right next door to the Student Center. As you can see, we have a diverse range of individuals. So we have a variety of female identified individuals, male identified, white identified, Black identified, other clinicians of color. You know, our clinicians range in sexual orientation, religious identities. You know, some of our clinicians have been first-generation students themselves. So we, you know, our clinicians come from a variety of different places. Some are from Kentucky, some are from outside of Kentucky. So we offer a range of identities that your student could connect with. This is a picture of our full-time staff with our doctoral interns who are also full-time with us. So we have about 23 to 25 individuals who work at our center full-time who are here to support your students. Our interns are doctoral students who are at the end of their training. So if you think about a medical residency, they are just at the end, and they see all the same kind of clients that a licensed professional like myself would. We also have advanced doctoral students, about 7 to 10 practicum students who also work with clients. They are with us about quarter time over the week. So we've got about 30 plus individuals who are here to help your students. What we do is try to match your students. They'll get connected with somebody during their first appointment. And if your student has certain preferences, whether it's a preference based off of identity, like race or religion or gender, we try to match that. We try to match and honor those preferences. Depending on the time of year, we may not always have the availability to match preferences. What is important to us is if your student feels like it's not a connection between them and that therapist, we want your student to let us know that so that we can get them connected to a therapist that they feel more connected to. All right. So our services, we offer kind of a stepped care approach to services. Not every student at the University of Kentucky needs therapy, but we do offer a wide range of services that students can engage in that are not necessarily therapy. And we're really trying to meet students where they are. And so I will, over the next few slides, go through our services. But what I want to say is our services start with often the initial consultation, which is about a 25 to 30-minute appointment where a student comes and meets with a clinician like myself. And I'm going to listen to that student and ask, you know, what are they concerned about and what do they think that they need for support? And then we'll talk about the different services we offer. So sometimes from that initial consultation, I'm recommending them attend some of our workshops, or I might be recommending they get connected to another office on campus. Or I might be recommending they get connected to one of our groups, or I might be recommending individual therapy. But it's a conversation that's often between myself and that student. Sometimes we also can recommend a student get connected to resources off campus. That's if we feel that a student needs longer term services than what we can traditionally offer at the counseling center, because we are focused on brief short-term therapy. And so if you have a student who has been living with mental health concerns for the majority of their life and they've been in kind of long-term therapy, that might be somebody that we would be referring to the community. Also, while our therapists at the counseling center are all generalists and we can work with any student that comes to see us, there are some specific treatment modalities that require kind of longer term or more than once a week, or are really specialized treatment. And so that's where we might sometimes need to refer somebody to the community. And so that's just like our University Health Service. You know, we try to meet kind of the general needs and demands of all of our college students, but when there's some really specialized assistance that students need, that's where we work to get them connected to the right kind of care off campus. And that's something that we have a care coordinator who will work with the student to make sure that they're getting connected. So I'm going to go through our services, but you can see that we, you know, often have first contact. We have programs related to self-care, programs related to support, programs related to skills, and then of course our therapy. So self-care, this is something I hope that you encourage your students to download this app called Stress Busters. It's a third-party app, but we have a specific version made for the University of Kentucky. It's got some really terrific tools to help students manage their stress, like a breathing tool, as well as music and videos to help them with relaxation and sleep. We also try to have our programs, which we're in the process of uploading the fall programs to the app right now. So they may not be there just yet, but this is an opportunity for students to see what kind of programs are available to them to help them manage stress that are UK specific. So it might be a program from the University of Kentucky Counseling Center, but it also might be a campus recreation program or maybe a financial wellness program. So we pull from other partners, University Health Services, things like that. And as you can see here, there are some points here, 225. The more that a student engages with the app, the more points they rack up. And then those points can be turned in for rewards at the counseling center. So we have things like dining cards and Yeti bottles and sweatshirt blankets and things like that, and t-shirts. And so do encourage your students to download it. Again, it's free. It should be on their iPad. It should be available for download on their iPad that they're receiving from the university. And you're also welcome to download it. We just want to make sure that they choose the University of Kentucky version. Some other apps that we encourage students to engage with for self-care. And so this is, before they even need to come to the counseling center, they can be doing some of these things on their own. The MindShift app is a terrific app for anxiety. It is free. It has many different coping strategies to manage anxiety and different types of anxiety. So feel free to download it yourself or encourage your students. The Headspace app is a terrific meditation app. A lot of students really like that app. There is a free version and then there's the upgraded versions, but I've had students who have enjoyed the free version. The Liberate meditation app is great for students of color and offers many different meditations that are useful and helpful. And then Sleep Rate is an app that is specifically free for students at the University of Kentucky, offered through Campus Recreation and Wellness. They are able to engage in a sleep program to help them. I mentioned before that some students have difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep and might need some help with their sleep hygiene, and this is a perfect app for that. Then also we offer many different programs that students can just drop into. They don't need to be a client of ours. We promote these on our website as well as our social media. Probably for the fall semester, most of our programs will be virtual. We offer many weekly programs like meditation and guided imagery. And then we offer some programs offered throughout the semester like managing test anxiety, career decision making. We'll offer a suicide prevention program. We may offer some healing spaces for our students of color. We've got some other programs like managing anxiety as it relates to COVID-19. So all of these will be on our website and also on our social media, and these are free for students to drop into. And we're also going to be looking at having our sessions recorded so students can watch them on their own time as well. We also have a great program called Let's Talk. So this is an opportunity for students to talk one-on-one with a clinician like myself. It's confidential, it's private, and it tends to be brief. So it could be 15 to 30 minutes. So this is a great way for students to try out therapy or try out what it might be like to talk to a clinician, or it's an opportunity just to talk to somebody that isn't a friend or a family member or a faculty member. If there's something that they need to talk through, this is a great chance for students to get some support. There's very little paperwork for students to fill out. All of the Let's Talk will be virtual this fall semester, so we're calling it Let's Teletalk. We will likely be offering a few hours each day, and we'll probably be offering hours in the evening for students. And so stay tuned for that information on our website as well as on our social media. But this is a terrific way, especially if your student is not really interested in therapy or feels nervous about going to therapy, this is a really good way to try it out without any commitment. We've also got a variety of support programs and groups. Some of these are based on identities like Color Coded and Speak Out, and then some are also based off of just some common concerns that college students have, like grief. So your student might lose a pet or may lose a family member or friend, and especially in times of COVID-19, this is a reality for many of our students. And so our grief support group is there to support students as they're managing their grief. And then there are some students who are recovering from an eating disorder, and so we have a Life After an Eating Disorder Recovery Support group. We also have some groups that are skill-based that really try to help give students some skills so that moving forward, they feel like they can manage and cope with their stress. So one of our most popular groups are understanding self and other groups. And that is terrific for students who might be feeling lonely or feeling like they're having a hard time connecting with folks. And that could be their peers, it could be friends back at home, it could be family. This is, just really an excellent source of support. And we often run about 7 of these each fall and spring semester. And what we know is that group therapy is one of the most powerful forms of therapy. And quite frankly, it's really challenging to have any of these types of groups outside of a university counseling center. So sometimes our students feel a little hesitant to engage in group therapy, talking about their concerns with peers, but we find that once they start talking about their concerns with peers, they're often validated, they're supported, they feel less alone, and that is so powerful, much more powerful than for me to offer some of the same support to students. And so if you hear that we've referred your student to a group and they're feeling a little hesitant, do try to encourage them to take that risk and try out something new, something that's a little outside of their comfort zone. We also offer many other groups that offer skills, like our anxiety action group that focuses on helping students gain some new skills to manage their anxiety. We've got our Wise Minds group that focuses on their kind of emotion management. Cognitive behavioral therapy focuses on kind of challenging thoughts so that students can be kinder and more compassionate to themselves. And then, of course, we've got some resilience programming. We also, of course, offer our therapy services, individual and couples therapy. Our couples therapy is loosely defined, where it could be a romantic couple, but could also be friends. And only one of the students needs to be, or only one of the individuals needs to be a University of Kentucky student. All of our therapy services are free. They are not connected to their academic record, and they are not connected to insurance. So our services are confidential and private. With the exception of if we are concerned about the safety of a student, if we think that they're at imminent risk for killing themselves or harming someone else, then we may break confidentiality. But we would be letting that student know that we would be breaking that confidentiality. And so if you as a parent want to know what's going on in your student's therapy, your student would have to sign a release of information for us to talk about what's going on. And also, just so you know, we are happy to consult with you as a parent. You are welcome to share information with us about your student. We may or may not be able to share that information, any information back to you. Again, it depends on a release. But we're also here to provide support to you. So if you're concerned about your student, do not hesitate to give us a call and talk with us. And you're welcome to provide us information. And as I mentioned before, our therapy services tend to be brief and time limited. And so, sometimes that means that we'll see students, once a week for several weeks in a row. Sometimes that means we'll see a student every other week or every couple of weeks, depending on what the student is wanting to learn how to manage and cope with. And we're constantly in communication with how can we together make some decisions about your student's treatment. Just wanted to highlight the accessibility of our services. So right now, the university, we plan to be back on campus for this fall semester, but in case anything happened where in class instruction became online, and your student, if they moved back home and home is not in the state of Kentucky, just want you to be aware of what services are available to you and your student versus what's available if your students are residing in Kentucky. So this is based off of licensing restrictions for our mental health licenses. And so if you and your student live outside of the state of Kentucky, and if they choose to move back home, if instruction moves online, we still do have services available to you. As you can see, apps are still available. The virtual workshops and programs are still available. Let's Talk, that brief consultation with a clinician like myself, is still available. Consultation, you're welcome to call us. Your student is welcome to call us. And then, of course, our website and social media is available. Now, if you're a student and you live in the state of Kentucky, all of our resources and our services are available to you at this time. And so your student could engage in teletherapy. I will say our services for the fall semester, we plan to mostly offer individual and couples therapy and our group services all virtually through telehealth. We have had very successful appointments with our students this spring and summer semester offering telehealth. We will see some students in crisis in person if need be. And if a student doesn't have any private space to have a therapy appointment, we do have some rooms available in the counseling center where students could sit in a room and have a teletherapy appointment with their clinician. So just wanted to make sure that you're aware of those services, that we still do serve students even if instruction moves online. This is our counseling center information. We have a website, which we're in the process of updating. So do look out in the next month or so to see an updated and newer version of the website. But that's a great way to stay on top of what we're offering. Our general hours are 8 to 4:30, Monday through Friday. We will likely be offering some evening hours on Tuesdays and Wednesdays until 7, and we may have evening hours one additional evening, and we're still working on what night that'll be. Our phone number, 859-257-8701, is 24/7. And so if your student needs to talk to somebody, they're always welcome to call our office. Someone will be available to talk with them. The best way to make an appointment currently with the counseling center is to call us first, and we'll get you scheduled. We do offer some same-day appointments, so even your student could call that same day and still be seen. But right now, calling is the best way to have an appointment. We are hoping to have online scheduling that should be coming sometime this end of summer, beginning of the fall. And so students should be able to schedule some appointments online. But right now, the best way to schedule an appointment with the counseling center is to give us a call. There's also the crisis text line. That is a national text line that's available for students, and they can get support from a crisis counselor. And there's the suicide prevention lifeline that is also available 24/7 for students. And we have social media. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. Feel free to follow us or have your student follow us as well. So just a couple more things, as a parent of a college student, we really want you to think about yourself as becoming this consultant to help foster this independence and resilience, right? So we want you to be aware of the UK resources, but we also want your student to become aware of them and encouraging your student to access these resources themselves. But it can be helpful for you to know about them. Now, you know your student best, and so if you're concerned about them, don't hesitate to ask. Engage in a conversation with your student. If you're worried, ask them, tell them. Again, you know them best. We also want you to think about not problem solving as much for your students. This is an opportunity for them to develop that autonomy, and they're going to make some mistakes. And we want them to kind of try out decision making for themselves and learn what works for them, what doesn't work for them. And you can support them and express care and also just remind them that this is a time for growth, that they're not going to get everything right. This first semester is one of the hardest in the sense that everything about the university is new. But come spring semester, they'll have more knowledge about how to navigate UK than they did in the fall semester. And that's, just about knowing that they're going to learn and grow. And sometimes it takes a couple of years for students to really learn how to be their best academic self. And so as a consultant, we want you to be able to provide support, encourage them to take some risks in decision making, but also provide them some constructive feedback and provide them some guidance or encourage them to seek guidance about specific topics like, say, finances or their health from offices on our campus that can help them. And we know that this is a transition for you all, which is why we are here for you, and many other offices are here to support you all in this transition. Some additional resources for you and your students. I had mentioned the Set2Go website. There's also this other website, Rise First, that's for first generation students. Again, this is an outside UK website, and the imfirst.org. And then there's some good Instagram accounts that you or your student can follow that are kind of uplifting and also really speak to the first generation student experience. And then there's many other resources available on our campus. We are a very well-resourced campus, and we work very closely with all of these offices and more at the University of Kentucky's Counseling Center. So if your student starts with us, we might get them connected to some of these offices. Or if they start at one of these offices, they might end up getting connected to our office. But our students have just a variety of resources at their hands. So if your student struggles with time management or organization, they could start with the study and transformative learning for an academic coaching appointment. If your student struggles with sleep, they could come to the counseling center, or they could get wellness coaching through Campus Recreation and Wellness. Financial Wellness Center can help your student learn how to budget, but also kind of manage their finances. We've got University Health Services who can help them certainly in health appointments and prevention with their health. The Disability Resource Center is fabulous. If your student has, a previous diagnosis of maybe a learning disability or a physical disability or even a mental health concern, I encourage you or your student to get connected to that office so that they can remain successful in their academics here. We've got the Bias Incident Support Service if your student experiences any kind of prejudice or discrimination. So Career Center certainly to help students kind of get connected to internships and jobs related to their majors and careers. So as you can see, we've got a lot of different resources on this campus, and that can feel kind of overwhelming, but wanted to put some of these in place here so that you can always refer back to this. Feel free to check out the websites of all these offices. And again, we really try to work collaboratively with these offices so that your student is supported in a variety of different ways. And then, of course, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to call our office, 859-257-8701. If you have questions, you can also send me an email. We are here to support you, and we want you and your student to have a successful time at the University of Kentucky. So we're excited that your student is joining us at the university. We can't wait for them to join our community. And we are here to support you all on this journey. Thank you so much.